In the shadowy depths of Cold War America, a sinister experiment was unfolding. It wasn't the plot of a Hollywood thriller. It was real, and it was happening right under our noses. The year was 1953. The CIA, America's clandestine intelligence agency, launched a top-secret program that would send shockwaves through history. Its code name? MKUltra. But this wasn't just another spy game. This was something far more insidious. The goal? To crack the code of the human mind itself, to bend it, shape it, control it. Imagine a world where your thoughts aren't your own, where your actions are puppeteered by unseen hands. This wasn't science fiction. This was MKUltra's endgame. The methods they used were as brutal as they were bizarre. LSD, the mind-bending psychedelic, became their weapon of choice. But it didn't stop there. They threw everything at the wall to see what would stick. Hypnosis, electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation. Nothing was off limits in their quest for mental domination. But here's the kicker. They didn't ask permission. They didn't seek consent. The subjects of these twisted experiments? They were often clueless pawns in a game they never agreed to play. Who were these unwitting guinea pigs? Some were prisoners, locked away and vulnerable. Others were psychiatric patients, already struggling with their own minds. But perhaps most chilling of all, some were just ordinary people, your neighbors, your friends, maybe even you. Picture this, you're walking down the street minding your own business. Suddenly your reality starts to warp. Colors intensify, sounds distort, your thoughts spiral out of control. You've been dosed with LSD, courtesy of the CIA, and you have no idea what's happening to you. This wasn't just about gathering intelligence. This was about reshaping the very fabric of human consciousness. They wanted to break people down, strip away their identity, and rebuild them into something controllable. For over 2 decades, MKUltra operated in the shadows. It hid behind a labyrinth of fake documents and false identities. The truth seemed destined to stay buried forever. But secrets have a way of coming to light. In the 1970s, a Freedom of Information request blew the lid off the whole operation. Thousands of files were exposed, revealing the horrifying scope of the program. The US government couldn't deny it anymore. They had to admit the unthinkable. MKUltra was real. But even as they confessed, they were busy covering their tracks. Most of the records were destroyed, burned to ashes along with the truth they contained. To this day, we don't know the full extent of what happened. How many lives were ruined? How many minds were broken? The answers are lost to history, consumed by fire and buried under layers of government secrecy. But what we do know is this: MKUltra happened. It wasn't a figment of paranoid imagination. It wasn't the ramblings of tinfoil hat wearers. It was a cold, hard reality. And it serves as a chilling reminder. Sometimes the most outlandish conspiracy theories aren't theories at all. Sometimes the truth is stranger and far more terrifying than fiction. The legacy of MKUltra lives on, a dark stain on America's history. It raises uncomfortable questions about the limits of power, the nature of consent, and the sanctity of the human mind. What other secrets lie buried in classified files? What other crazy conspiracies might turn out to be horrifyingly true? MKUltra teaches us to question, to dig deeper, to never take the official story at face value. Because in a world where governments can secretly manipulate minds, where reality itself can be warped by shadowy agencies, nothing is truly impossible. The line between paranoia and prudence becomes blurred. Think about it. If they could do this in the 1950s, what are they capable of now? With advances in technology, neuroscience, and psychology, the possibilities are both exciting and terrifying. Could there be modern-day MKUltras operating right now, hidden from public view? Are we all unwitting subjects in some grand, invisible experiment? These questions might sound paranoid, But after MKUltra, can we really afford to dismiss them outright? The human mind is the final frontier, the last bastion of true privacy and autonomy. Or at least, that's what we like to believe. MKUltra showed us how fragile that autonomy really is, how easily our most intimate thoughts and behaviors can be manipulated. It's a sobering thought. Every time you feel an inexplicable mood swing, every time you make a decision that seems out of character, a tiny voice in the back of your mind might whisper, "Is this really me, or am I being controlled?" Of course, it's important not to let this knowledge paralyze us with fear. The world is complex, and not every shadow hides a sinister plot. But MKUltra teaches us the value of healthy skepticism, of questioning authority, of fighting for transparency, because in the end, knowledge is power. The more we know about programs like MKUltra, the better equipped we are to prevent them from happening again. Sunlight, as they say, is the best disinfectant. So the next time someone dismisses a crazy conspiracy theory, remember MKUltra. Remember that sometimes the truth is crazier than any fiction. Remember that in the murky world of intelligence and power, anything is possible. MKUltra may be over, but its ghost still haunts us. It's a reminder that our minds, our very selves, are precious and vulnerable. It's a call to vigilance, to never stop seeking the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or unbelievable it might seem. Because in a world where MKUltra could happen, where governments could secretly dose citizens with mind-altering drugs and experiment on the unwitting, what else might be possible? What other dark secrets are waiting to be uncovered? The story of MKUltra isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a warning from the past, echoing into our present and future. It's a reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and that the battle for the sanctity of the human mind is never truly over. So keep your eyes open. Question everything, and remember, sometimes the craziest conspiracy theory isn't a theory at all. In 1932, a dark chapter in American medical history began to unfold. The U.S. government launched a study in Tuskegee, Alabama, that would become one of the most infamous examples of unethical research in modern times. 600 African American men were recruited for what they were told was treatment for bad blood. But this was far from the truth. The reality was far more sinister and would have devastating consequences for generations to come. These men weren't being treated at all. Instead, they were unwitting subjects in a government experiment to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis. The researchers wanted to see what would happen when the disease was left to run its course without intervention. Even after penicillin became the standard cure for syphilis in the 1940s, the study continued. The men were deliberately denied this life-saving treatment. The government doctors stood by, watching as their health deteriorated year after year, decade after decade. They allowed these men to suffer, they allowed them to die, all in the name of scientific research. The participants were never informed of their true condition or the real purpose of the study. They were kept in the dark, manipulated, and ultimately betrayed by the very institutions that were supposed to protect them. For 40 years, this unethical experiment continued. It only came to an end in 1972, and not because of any moral awakening within the medical community. It took a whistleblower, Peter Buxton, to expose the truth to the press before the study was finally shut down. By the time the Tuskegee syphilis study was halted, the damage was already done. Over 100 men had died directly from syphilis or related complications. But the tragedy didn't end there. The wives of many participants had been infected, unaware of the danger they were in. Some children were born with congenital syphilis, their lives forever altered before they even took their first breath. This wasn't some far-fetched conspiracy theory or the plot of a dystopian novel. This was real. It happened in the United States, conducted by government health officials over the course of 4 decades. The Tuskegee syphilis study stands as a stark reminder of the potential for abuse in medical research and the importance of ethical oversight. The revelation of this study sent shockwaves through American society. It exposed deep-seated racial biases in the medical community and highlighted the vulnerability of marginalized populations to exploitation in the name of science. The public outcry was immediate and intense. As a result of the Tuskegee syphilis study, sweeping changes were made to U.S. law regarding human subject research. Today, every medical study conducted in America must adhere to strict ethical guidelines. Informed consent became a cornerstone of medical research ethics. Institutional review boards were established to oversee and approve research protocols involving human subjects. The legacy of Tuskegee continues to shape medical ethics and public health policy. It serves as a constant reminder of the importance of transparency, informed consent, and the ethical treatment of research participants. The study has become a case study in bioethics courses, ensuring that future generations of medical professionals understand the grave consequences of unethical research. But the impact of Tuskegee goes beyond just changes in law and policy. It created a deep-seated mistrust of the medical establishment within the African American community, a mistrust that persists to this day. This legacy of suspicion has had far-reaching consequences, affecting everything from participation in clinical trials to acceptance of public health initiatives. The Tuskegee syphilis study is a stark reminder of what can happen when scientific curiosity is allowed to override basic human rights and dignity. It shows us the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of ethical oversight in all areas of research and medicine. As we look back on this dark chapter in American history, we must remember the men of Tuskegee. We must remember their suffering, their betrayal, and the lasting impact on their families and communities. We must ensure that their story is never forgotten so that such a grave injustice is never repeated. The Tuskegee syphilis study changed the face of medical research in America forever. It forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about racism, ethics, and the potential for abuse in scientific research. It led to the development of stringent protections for human subjects in medical studies, but perhaps most importantly, it serves as a constant reminder of the human cost of unethical research. It stands as a testament to the importance of vigilance, transparency, and accountability in all areas of scientific inquiry. Today, when we participate in a medical study, when we sign an informed consent form, when we see the oversight of an institutional review board, we are seeing the legacy of Tuskegee. We are benefiting from the hard-learned lessons of that tragic experiment. The men of Tuskegee paid an unimaginable price. Their suffering led to protections that benefit all of us today. We owe it to them to remember their story, to remain vigilant, and to always prioritize ethics and human dignity in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. The Tuskegee syphilis study is more than just a historical footnote. It's a powerful reminder of what can happen when we lose sight of our shared humanity. It's a call to action, urging us to always question, to always seek the truth, and to always stand up for what's right. As we move forward, let us carry the lessons of Tuskegee with us. Let us remember the importance of informed consent, ethical research practices, and the protection of vulnerable populations. Let us work to rebuild trust between medical institutions and marginalized communities. And above all, let us never forget the men of Tuskegee. Their story, their suffering, and their legacy have forever changed the landscape of medical research in America. Because of Tuskegee, because of what they did, we now have safeguards in place to protect the rights and dignity of research participants. The Tuskegee syphilis study may be a dark chapter in our history, but it has led to a brighter, more ethical future in medical research. It's up to all of us to ensure that we continue to honor this legacy, to remain vigilant, and to always put ethics and human dignity at the forefront of scientific inquiry. In 2013, a man named Edward Snowden changed the world. He wasn't a politician, a celebrity, or a tech mogul. He was just an ordinary guy working as a contractor for the NSA, America's national security agency. But what he saw during his time there was far from ordinary. It was terrifying. Snowden discovered that the US government was watching everyone, not just suspected criminals or foreign threats, but ordinary citizens going about their daily lives, phone calls, emails, Google searches. Nothing was off limits. The scale of this surveillance was unprecedented and deeply disturbing. The government claimed it was all in the name of fighting terrorism. They said it was necessary to keep Americans safe in a post-9/11 world. But Snowden saw through this facade. He realized that it wasn't just about security, it was about control. The power to monitor every aspect of people's lives gave the government an unprecedented level of influence over its citizens. Faced with this shocking reality, Snowden made a decision that would change his life forever. He leaked thousands of classified documents to journalists, exposing secret programs with ominous code names like PRISM and X-Keyscore. These programs allowed the NSA to collect vast amounts of data from tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple, often without the company's knowledge or consent. When the story broke, the government's initial response was denial. They claimed Snowden was exaggerating, that he didn't have access to the information he claimed to have. But as more documents came to light, their story began to crumble. Slowly but surely, they were forced to admit the truth. Mass surveillance of American citizens was real, and it had been going on for years. The revelation sent shockwaves around the world. Suddenly, what many had dismissed as paranoid conspiracy theories turned out to be cold, hard fact. The government had been spying on its own citizens on a scale that was hard to comprehend, and they'd been doing it in secret, without public knowledge or consent. As the full extent of the surveillance program became clear, Snowden knew he couldn't stay in the US. He fled the country, eventually finding asylum in Russia. To this day, he remains in exile, unable to return to his homeland without facing severe legal consequences, all because he dared to tell the public what they were never meant to know. Years passed, and the debate over mass surveillance continued. Privacy advocates argued that the programs were unconstitutional, while government officials insisted they were necessary for national security. It wasn't until 2020 that a US court finally ruled that the surveillance program was illegal, but by then it was too late. The damage was already done. The court's ruling should have been a victory for privacy rights. But the scary part? Even after being declared illegal, these surveillance practices didn't just disappear. They evolved, operating under different names and with slightly altered methods. The core issue remained: the government's insatiable appetite for data and its willingness to push legal and ethical boundaries to get it. This is perhaps the most chilling aspect of Snowden's revelations. They showed us not just what had happened, but what was still happening and what could happen in the future. The technology for mass surveillance exists, and once it's created, it's incredibly difficult to put that genie back in the bottle. Snowden's actions sparked a global conversation about privacy in the digital age. It forced people to confront uncomfortable questions. How much of our personal information are we willing to give up in the name of security? Who watches the watchers? And in a world where our lives are increasingly lived online, is true privacy even possible anymore? These questions are more relevant now than ever before. As we willingly share more of our lives on social media, as smart devices listen to our conversations, and as our online activities are tracked and analyzed, the line between convenience and surveillance becomes increasingly blurred. Some argue that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear from surveillance. But this misses the point entirely. Privacy isn't about hiding wrongdoing, it's about personal autonomy, freedom of thought, and the ability to live without constant scrutiny. When we know we're being watched, we change our behavior. We self-censor, we conform, and bit by bit we lose the very freedoms that make our society worth protecting. Moreover, the existence of these surveillance capabilities creates a dangerous temptation for abuse. History has shown time and time again that power, left unchecked, tends to corrupt. The ability to spy on anyone at any time is an enormous power, one that's ripe for misuse. This is why Snowden's actions were so important. He didn't just reveal specific programs or abuses, he pulled back the curtain on an entire system of secret surveillance that had grown far beyond its original purpose. He showed us how much privacy we've already lost and how much more we stand to lose if we don't take action. In the years since Snowden's revelations, there have been some positive changes. Tech companies have become more transparent about government data requests, encryption has become more widespread and robust, and there's a greater public awareness of digital privacy issues. But these are small victories in a much larger battle. The fundamental tension between privacy and security remains unresolved, and as technology continues to advance at a breakneck pace, new challenges emerge. Facial recognition, artificial intelligence, and big data analytics all offer powerful new tools for surveillance, tools that could make the programs Snowden exposed look quaint by comparison. So where do we go from here? How do we balance the legitimate need for security with the fundamental right to privacy? There are no easy answers, but one thing is clear. We can't afford to be complacent. We must remain vigilant, questioning, and engaged in the ongoing debate about the role of surveillance in our society. Edward Snowden took an enormous risk to bring this issue to light. He sacrificed his career, his home, and his freedom to inform the public about what was being done in their name. Whether you view him as a hero or a traitor, there's no denying the impact of his actions. As we move forward into an increasingly digital future, we would do well to remember the lessons of Snowden's revelations. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and in the age of mass surveillance, that vigilance is more important than ever. The NSA and other agencies like it around the world may still be watching. But thanks to Snowden, we're watching them right back.